Hey you and welcome. My name is Mike, and in this whole video we're going back once again to Alaska. Alaska again. My goodness, like what goes on up there? It's so isolated. I mean, does it even exist? Does it though? Ah sure, here, I have my fun. And so did James Dale Ritchie in the summer of 2016. James, J-Dog, was described as super intelligent. Unfortunately, he didn't use his gifts for good. Nuh-uh. So, there you have it. So, let's get into the story which I'm about to tell you. Which I'll do right now. Man, my intro sucks! Now, Anchorage has a, well, it was surprising to me, to be honest. But I guess there really is just nothing to do there. A comparatively high rate of crime compared to other US cities. In 2018, Alaska actually got the coveted spot of most violent crimes. Gold medal! It was followed by New Mexico. Although then again, it's probably not very populated either, so... Fucking bears, man. Though the year we're going to, 2016, it was actually a year when moitas were kind of low, funnily enough. I say that because we've already been to Alaska in 2016. That was the year David Grunwald died. And it's the year we're going to. It's the year we're going to because somebody was stalking the streets and parks of Anchorage. It began on the 3rd of July, a Sunday, with highs of about 17 degrees. It was about 20 to 8 that morning, and a cyclist, cycling through Ship Creek Trail near downtown Anchorage found two people lying on the bike path. They quickly called the police. The two people found had been shot dead. They were identified as Brianna Foisey, 20 years old, and 41-year-old Jason Netter Sr. And so when the, investigation, that's a magnifying glass, began, the police didn't really have much to go on. Someone did report that a couple of hours prior, like around 3 or 4 a.m., they had heard about 6 gunshots, in the area, but that was about it. Brianna had a learning disability. She was born with a fetal alcohol disorder. She loved to sing.
Hello, this is Perfect 2 by Auburn. How's it go? Oh.
She had struggled with drugs and had been homeless from time to time. Jason too was homeless. He lived right around the corner from where they were both killed, in a junkyard. Jason also battled with drug addiction and had just been released from prison. In fact, a friend of Jason's who shared the storage unit they lived in, with him, he told the police when the investigation began that he thought, maybe they had been killed. Maybe it was a drug deal gone awry or something like that.
I don't like to talk smart to any Tom, Dick, and Harry, and he likes to run his mouth. He has a handful of enemies for doing crappy deals. All I can think of, like I said, dirty drug deal, man, went down. That's what my gut's saying.
It was possible, Anchorage, like most other cities in America, had been suffering from some degree of opioid crisis with gangs and that kind of thing, so it could be that, but then, well, at that stage, who knew? All they had was this. The two victims did know each other, but the police didn't know the extent of their connections. It wasn't believed to be strong. No shell casings were found at the scene, which, were killed by gunshots. It was believed that the weapon used was a revolver. This was confirmed when tests revealed they had been shot with a .357 Colt Python. So now they had a weapon to be on the lookout for. It would be a little over 3 weeks later that it would be used again. On the 29th of July, a few hours after midnight, 3 teenage girls were playing outside when they saw a man standing underneath a lamppost. Shortly after, they saw a guy who approached on a bike. This whole kind of thing creeped them out, so they went inside, and then, not long after, heard gunshots. The guy who was just creepily, creeping on a lamppost, standing there, shot the guy who was riding the bike, just riding past them, took the bike, went off. This was captured on CCTV. The victim was 21-year-old Travion Kendall Thompson. He was, by all accounts, a smart, good-natured guy. He wasn't involved in gangs or drugs at all, no connection to either Brianna or Jason. He worked, and when he wasn't working, he was gaming. That's it. The 3 teenage witnesses, said that, well, from what they saw, the 2 guys didn't interact, at all. So it was quite different from the first case. In fact, you wouldn't even think they would be linked at all if, the same gun hadn't been used. So this time, there was not only witnesses to the scene, the crime scene, there was footage. Due to the CCTV, the police surmised that the shooter was a tall fella, over 6 feet. And, thanks to the 3 teens and an FBI artist, they now had a sketch of the shooter, and he was wearing a camo jacket. But other than that, they didn't have much else. And once again, days and weeks would go by. They were on the lookout for a tall guy with long hair wearing a camo jacket. And they were also on the lookout for the yellow bike he stole. But they didn't find him. And that's when, words and whispers began to spread, that, there might be a serial killer in Anchorage. It was like one of those, my girlfriend's uncle's dog's baby told me there's some guy going around here with a rocket launcher and just killing people for the fun, and he's laughing while he does it.
Until recently, detectives publicly declined to make any connection among the shootings.
Is there evidence that that they're related to a serial killer?
We are investigating, and again, any talk about the serial killer is speculation.
Shit and rumors was just bubbling up all the time. And then it happened again. Almost a month, to the day later. On the 28th of August, early morning, once again, 2 more bodies were found. Once again, on a bike path in a popular area, the Valley of the Moon Park. The victims this time were 34-year-old Kevin Turner and 25-year-old Bryant DeHusen. The 2 victims had no known connections. Kevin was recently homeless. It seemed he had been shot while sitting in a pavilion, not bothering anyone.
Police have released very little about the Valley of the Moon killings. Turner's family wants answers.
Somebody took his life, and I really hope that the Anchorage Police Department finds him. I really hope that the FBI is giving them all the help that they can.
Bryant was an environmental activist who was simply cycling through the area when he was shot. Shot with the same gun he probably just stumbled upon the killer killing Kevin with. It was at that point that the police maybe started wanting to deny some rumors. But they released some information to the public, not the sketch and not the gun type, obviously, because if they released what type of gun the killer was using, the killer might stop using it.
Many arrived from the very trail that became the scene of a double murder nearly 2 weeks ago.
The people were getting murdered and people were afraid.
Close to 200 came to Valley of the Moon Park, feeling the weight of recent events.
Are we actually safe? It doesn't feel safe.
We really feel for you, and we're here tonight for you.
Both Anchorage's chief of police and its mayor are meeting here, following demands from this neighborhood for increased safety.
And don't permit you know, the drug dealers and the pimps and the predators and the thugs to take over blocks and parks.
We're not going to roll over and surrender any part of this town to people that want to make it unsafe for anybody.
The mayor said community policing does work, but the police department with its 386 sworn officers is too few.
Ideally, according to professional standards, there should be almost 450 officers.
The city has advised the public to stay away from certain areas of the trail system.
If you say don't go out then we've failed as a society. We've given up our public space. We can't do that.
I think the advice I was trying to give is, you know, it's tough out there. It really is. And you got to look out for yourself, and we got to look out for each other. That's the real message.
The chief was also pressed about who might have committed recent murders.
I have heard that there might be a serial killer.
The worst thing we can do is speculate and cause rumors to go about and so on.
A chance to brainstorm ways of improving the city.
But why don't we put cameras on the park strip? I just read something
in light of crimes that have disturbed so many.
But it's nothing that we can't overcome as a community.
So they did come out with this. Just a little bit of friendly advice, you know, so you don't get killed. Since June 27, 2016, there have been 15 homicide victims. This came out on the 30th of August, so, it's a lot. Fair for you. Of those victims, 6 were engaged in high-risk behaviors and/or lifestyles, such as drugs, guns, and criminal activity. Several of the homicides have involved individuals under the age of 21. There have been 4 deaths associated with domestic violence and 5 deaths of individuals that have been outside in the late night, early morning hours, most of which in isolated areas such as bike trails, parks, and unoccupied streets. Criminal activity often increases late at night and during early morning hours. Whoa. APD wants to remind our citizens to be cautious when they are out during these hours. If you plan to be out late at night, make sure you travel with several friends and are not alone. And, you know, just trying to get killed. It's more work for us.
Chief, recently there was a nixel sent out there, kind of a cryptic nixel.
There's nothing unusual about this. We advise and try to keep the community informed as best we can.
Should the average person in Anchorage be worried? Are these tied together in any way so that it's a lifestyle choice, or is it something the average person should worry about?
We need the community's help so much, no matter how little you think that incident. If you're woken up in the middle of the night and you hear loud bangs or whatever, please call the police department, because that piece of information is vital to us figuring things out.
In September 2016, with public wanting a bit more, they released more, including the sketch, and tips started coming in. Tips like, I seen that yellow bike in a neighborhood called Airport Heights. A $10,000 reward was offered by the FBI for information leading to the killer. And then it went quiet. Too quiet, to use that thing people say. But it would get real loud real soon because of a chance encounter in early November. This would happen almost 3 months after the killer last struck in the Valley of the Moon Park with the double homicide. In the wee hours of November 12th, 2016, talking 4:30 a.m., hour of the wolf. Is it? Cops are on the beat. That morning was a Saturday after the Friday night. Busy night in Anchorage as people were out on the sauce, having a few sups, getting goosed. Then a 911 call made the phone ring. Someone had taken a taxi ride and then just did a legger, stiffed the taxi driver. A patrol officer, 38-year-old Aaron Salau, popped on downtown to check it out. While driving, he saw a fella out for a stroll in the area the suspect was supposed to be in. So Salau asked this guy to stop.
Sir, Anchorage Police, can I get you to stop?
He didn't.
11:30, doesn't want to stop? I'll try to come off here at Hope Depot. This is the Anchorage Police. You need to stop. This is the Anchorage Police. You need to stop.
Then he suddenly turned around and started walking towards the patrol car, taking something out of his pocket. He then opened fire on Officer Salau with the .357, striking him 4 times. So who was this guy? James Dale Ritchie. He was somebody who really wasn't on the police radar until he unloaded on one. 6-foot-tall James Dale Ritchie was nicknamed Tiny. That's not an ironic nickname, by the way. He really was tiny, if you know what I mean. And he was born in 1976, which made him 40 when all of this occurred. He was a local, grew up in Anchorage. Being big, he played football and basketball. And he was smart too, scoring 1200 on his SATs, which is good, I understand. Growing up, he was good friends with Bobby Thompson, who would go on to father Travion Kendall Thompson. Though it's not believed that James knew who he killed, who he murdered. He went to Western Virginia University playing football, but didn't really cut the mustard and returned after 1 semester back to Alaska. For all his prowess, in the classroom and on the football field, though, he wasn't really interested in that. He was more interested in, he had a dark side to him. He started getting involved with drugs and also dogfighting.
In a letter to a judge, Ritchie once wrote that he wished he would have chosen to play sports at one of the smaller colleges that had pursued him. Quote, "I lay in bed every night thinking about how I've ruined my life. Then I sit up crying, wishing I could go back to when I was in high school," he wrote.
He was arrested once for selling crack out of his apartment. When the cops arrived, he reached into his sweatpants, and out of the leg fell a handgun. So, not a good look. He was next arrested for drunk driving, violating his probations, and a good few times after that. With the last time being in 2005, when he broke into someone's house in the middle of the night with handcuffs and 2 handguns. What he was going to do with them? Ooh, yikes. He served 2 years for that, and then he moved to Virginia, to Broadway in Virginia, where he lived with his parents for a while. He would stay there for a few years. He traveled around the lower 48 during those years, the FBI is actually investigating to see if he is involved in some unsolved murders around the time he was in that area.
Investigators are now looking into his past and his travels here and elsewhere,
to see if they can come up with some sort of a common MO, common characteristics that could possibly link him to other killings in other states.
Places like Virginia and Las Vegas, Nevada.
He eventually returned to Anchorage in February 2016, and then about 4 or 5 months later, so back to November.
This is the Anchorage Police. You need to stop.
He shot the shit out of the cops, did a legger, somehow made it to Mexico. I'm kidding, they fucking riddled him. Officer Salau got shot multiple times, but managed to get out of his car and return fire. While another officer, Mark Patsky, arrived and he too opened fire on James Dale Ritchie. James, taking fire from 2 sides, was killed and collapsed on the pavement, while Aaron Salau lay bleeding out on the cold November ground.
Good morning. I'm Chief Tolley of the Anchorage Police Department. We have an officer who was ambushed. Anchorage had a citizen who was ambushed today. I think it made it very concerning is that citizen was a police officer. An officer was out on the streets in the early morning hours doing what we do each and every day and night. This officer was attempting to identify an individual that potentially involved in a theft. And almost immediately, the person who this officer came in contact with ambushed the officer.
Hi, it's Officer Slough. I want to thank everybody for everything that they've done for myself and my family, my APD family, my law enforcement family. I want to let everyone know that I am doing very well and appreciate all the support.
Aaron Salau survived. Can't say the same for James. Pretty badass. It would be 5 months later before the police would formally announce that James Dale Ritchie was the serial killer they had been looking for. The city breathed easier after that. Though homicides are still high enough there, to be fair.
As the deadliest year on record comes to an end in Anchorage, many questions remain about a series of killings linked to a single gun. Police and the FBI continue to investigate life and alleged crimes of former East High School star James Dale Ritchie, looking to establish whether he pulled the trigger in more than one murder.
As I said, the FBI is still investigating whether he is connected to, well, any other, unsolved homicides around, Virginia. And it's believed he traveled around, like I said, the lower 48 quite a bit, so places like Virginia, Colorado, and more. So why did he do this? Well, that's a question. That is the question, yeah. I don't think many people have an answer for that, and if they do, I don't think it's a good one. We don't know. He never revealed. I mean, he got riddled. And the police never revealed why, what his motive was, why he would do this. But then again, he was a serial killer. So, just doing it for the crack. They never need a reason. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. I will see you as always real soon in the next one. Till then, take care of yourselves. Mike out.